Post-apocalyptic themes aren't uncommon in gaming today, however I appreciate it when developers try new things within that space. Void Terrarium ++ is an interesting release from publisher NIS America. It was previously released on Switch and PS4 but has since been upgraded to an all-new version for the PlayStation 5, hence the ++ in the title. While I don't recommend double dipping in this adventure, I find it a breath of fresh air for those needing a casual dungeon crawling experience. Void Terrarium ++ tells the same story as before, and the core beats have gone untouched in this release. A toxic fungus has plagued the earth, forcing humanity underground, to which they have slowly died off. Players assume the role of a robot who stumbles across a human-like girl still alive but in need of nourishment. There's an AI named Factory AI who also wants friends to talk to, so she lends some guidance. From here on out, the human girl named Toriko's life is in your hands. Players will need to venture out and obtain items to convert into resources that can be used to upgrade Toriko's home terrarium and keep her safe. There are multiple dungeons throughout the game that vary in length, but completing them isn't really all that necessary. Void Terrarium ++ has a strange approach to dungeon crawling RPGs. For starters, no matter how far you get, progress will be made by filling up your inventory with items. If you die, items are converted into resources, and every time you leave the dungeon, your level resets to 1. To push players to go further is Toriko, who will often become infected with various diseases. Players have to keep a close watch on Toriko through a nanny system. It allows players to see when her terrarium needs to be clean or when she isn't feeling good. It also puts a time limit on dungeon exploring. While you'd think you could spend all your time grinding levels, Toriko will soon need to be fed, so there's always something to take you out. Missions are generally vague descriptions of items along with which floor to find them on. This is provided by the AI computer, which always comes across as if it's hiding something. There still isn't a skip text button, but you can speed up the text through the option menu. The pacing is ultimately held back by these requirements. Asking the player to go to the 10th floor but putting a challenging monster room on the 8th floor can bring progress to a crawl. You're ultimately at the mercy of the procedural nature of the dungeons. If you don't spend enough time obtaining a decent loadout, higher floor enemies will knock you out. The most annoying of them being ranged shooter robots and poison bugs that will poison you every time unless you have a large supply of throwable weapons. This creates a balanced struggle that weighs on the fun of the experience since enemies only vary mostly by color but their attacks are all the same. Still, anything you do, no matter if you die, adds to your inventory of resources that can be used to purchase permanent upgrades and items for Toriko, which come with their own bonuses. This will allow you to go further into the dungeons without having to grind levels, but the legendary upgrades that you randomly stumble upon will vanish between runs, which is sad. This game requires some understanding of turn-based dungeon crawlers, where with every move you make an enemy will take a turn. It allows for strategy, but it could also result in a quick death if you don't take advantage of the items in your inventory. Thankfully, due to the upgrades and item management, early deaths become less of an issue the more you improve your robot, and Toriko will also become less needy. The later dungeons in the game retain their challenge, but the environmental theme changes don't really do enough to differentiate to the core layout, resulting in a repetitive run. The game is also about helping Toriko, so knowing that a quick trip to a dungeon could give you enough resources to build her a nice bed is as good as an incentive as any. The narrative progresses based on milestones, but everything flows at its own natural pace. You begin to have a sense of ownership over Toriko, making subsequent dungeon runs not so troubling. The relationship is charming, and the entire experience isn't overly taxing on the player unless you ignore her and get a game over. Sadly, if you played Void Terrarium on Switch or PS4, I don't think I can recommend this version of the game. It's just way too similar, and a few extra diseases and emotes aren't enough to replay the same narrative. I'm actually confused why these PS5 exclusive features couldn't be added as an update to the last gen versions, as there are very few if any visual enhancements, and the adventure is largely the same. Void Terrarium ++ is a fun dungeon crawler RPG that doesn't need to be exclusive to PS5, but it is. Fans of last gen versions shouldn't feel required to upgrade because this is the same adventure with a few added diseases to cure and emotes to obtain. Still, it is a low tension and overly charming adventure, and one that I feel is worth it to new players. The game loop is addictive, and the reward of making Toriko safe and happy is enough to push you on to the next dungeon floor. Noisy Pixel is giving Void Terrarium ++ a 7 out of 10. Thank you for watching. Please read the full review at noisypixel.net. NoisyPixel is run by a group of gamers who work hard to deliver news, reviews, previews, and more. Please subscribe to keep up with all our future content.
Noisy Pixel.